Live from New York City. Well, I don't know what program that is. It's one of the chat shows, I believe. So I put a message up on a group earlier on today about recruiting, and on that message, all of a sudden, people wanted to know how I did it. And over the years, in the city of Toronto in Canada, it's been over 100,000 people through the doors for interviews over 5 years. That equates to 1 out of every 30 people in the city of Toronto as a number, which is, technically insane. However, we did it anyway, and that was the days before. That was the days before the internet. That was just off the same newspaper ad, more or less, every day in the same paper for 5 years. So you would think people would get sick of it, but that's not the case. It's sometimes these things take a while to kick in. If you're in a city, let's say we're going to use Toronto. If you're in a city where it's highly competitive and there's lots going on, you have to be aware that it takes a while to ramp up if you're just doing traditional newspaper advertising. If you're in a city in a recession, boom, the phone will just ring off the hook. If you're in a city where there's no work, your phone will ring off the hook. So my take on that today is, if I'm building a business today, and for legal reasons I've already explained, I don't use business names on here. If I'm building a business today, I want to start recruiting. So I'm going to utilize a couple of things. Number one, the newspapers are dead. Forget it. The newspapers are yesterday's news. So not only that, they're expensive. And, we utilize this. I know someone on the line here used to work with me in Wall Street, and our advertising budget in New York was about 6 times anyone's advertising budget. And we had like a third of the space out there. It's just nuts what you can spend on recruiting advertising. So, these days, there's a shift from that. So there's various mediums to come in to get your traffic. You've got things like the big companies, like I think it's Monster or one of these companies, that not the drink company. Monster is like a recruiting thing we used to use. And literally some days we would have, I think we put an ad in one day for a receptionist, admin assistant. We had 13,500 resumes coming in a day. There's nothing you can do with that. So, when you've got to be a bit more specific on that, it's the actual wording thing. So, great mediums, things like the websites or the Craigslist, and that we've got people on the team who know how to work these things. But what I don't do, it was always I read a book years ago, and I think it's out of print, I can't find it. It was called Guerrilla Marketing, but there's a very specific technique in there for recruiting. And it was basically, instead of doing things en masse, which I'd done over the years, less is more. If you're spending time explaining to people every little thing, it's time consuming, it's not worth it. You've got to work on, a great book by Grant Cardone is the 10 times rule. If you want one person in your team, you've got to have 10 going on at once. You may put something on Craigslist or wherever, and what you've got to do is narrow it down. So don't take every single person that says they're interested as someone that says they're interested in anything. And less is more, okay? Pique their curiosity. Connect with the person. Don't talk business at all. There's people watching this right now that haven't got a clue what I do, but they've seen the link. This link is filling up fast. So what I do initially is pique your curiosity. Now, you've got a couple of things in your favor here. Now, I'll explain what I've done in the past. In fact, I'll explain what I've done in the past first. And this is paramount. It's absolutely paramount to recruiting. You've got to know your stuff. You absolutely have to know your stuff. So I put a title on this: how I made seven-figure annual income from corporate recruiting, which I did. I wasn't a typical recruiter in an office full of recruiters looking for people and trying to entice them out of their jobs. I was a guy that literally would just speak with anyone. So I look for people in Tony, do you want to just put yourself on silent there? Tony?
Is that
Tony?
me?
Do you want to put yourself on mute?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that!
I'll shut you up.
Oh, wait, hold on, I'm getting it.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I've got control of the shut up button, you can shut it up. Got it. So I'm on a panel here with 4 women, and they're all muted. Anything could go horrendously wrong if you're watching this, I'm just telling you. So what I would look for is I wouldn't target a certain market, but I would look for people who were in either a breaking point or ready for a change. So what do I mean by that? I've just had a great conversation with a lady in the UK right now, albeit through Messenger, that, had her own business, had a bunch of apartments, lost it all, had a child, on the rebound. So, she's on the rebound. Maybe 2 years ago, she was at breaking point. She's putting her life back together now. So that's someone that's on a breaking point, or just been laid off, or just been divorced, or looking, just in a situation where they want a fresh start. So what happens in recessionary times, we'll take this as an example. We're not in a recession per se. People's recession, I believe, is truly in their mind. But what happens in times where economies are shaky, and we'll use that as diplomatic as I can be, when there's redundancies around the corner, which they can be, and I'm not a doom monger here, but it's a reality. Technology takes over certain things. People get down, companies get downsized, or they start using stuff offshore. I mean, call centers are a perfect example, or manufacturing plants to get stuff made somewhere it's cheaper. And all of a sudden you've got a whole workforce of 500 or 1,000 people that are all of a sudden without work. Now the challenge they've got is if they're all in one city, and that city is dependent on that person. I went through Rochester, New York a few years ago. I think it might have been Kodak up there, or Eastman, or someone that was the main employer for the city. All of a sudden they went, huge unemployment. When I really did the best with recruiting was in a town or a city called Hamilton, Ontario in Canada. It was an old steel town, and the 2 biggest mills literally laid everyone off. So you've got, whatever the figure is, 40% of the city, 50% of the city that all worked in this one industry at these 2 plants. All of a sudden they've got no work, 0, and they're looking for jobs. So every job that comes up, if there's a job for 1 person or 2 people, you might have 6,000 people going for the job. So for me, that's ideal. What happens is this: people have to look for transition at breaking point. So if you're a computer programmer or something like that, and all of a sudden you get laid off by your computer company, and everyone else in the department gets laid off, and you're all in the same place, and there's 1 computer programming job, but there's 300 of you been laid off, you've got to find something else to do or another way to do it. So this is what I mean by people where they're at breaking point, where they've got bills, especially people who've been in careers, they've got bills, they've got to pay the bills, they don't want to go on welfare, they're not that sort of thing, and they're looking for a way out, number 1. Number 2, those are people at breaking point. You've got people at transition. And, I hear this a lot. It took me till I was X years old, until I found my path, until I found what I wanted to do. Well, there's no surprise there, because, as we come out of school or college or uni or whatever it is, however far you got, you might have been channeled into a certain way of thinking, and you might have been channeled by other people. And I talk a lot about, our circle of 5, the 5 people we spend the most time with. Now, when we're growing up, parents are in there. My mother passed when I was 7, so I had no siblings, just me and my father. My father was a typical sort of immigrant, and who wanted the best for his child. So my father literally drove me nuts with, to be a doctor, or be a lawyer, or be an accountant, or whatever it may be. That was his dream. For me, I wanted to kick a ball around. I had no interest whatsoever. So when I got that sort of pressure at school, I pushed back a little bit. That's just maybe my nature. I pushed back and just walked out of school one day and said, enough, I've had it. However, sometimes we get channeled into things, and we get into a job or a career, and we find that, by the time, especially if you're going to university, you might be in your 20s. By the time you get out of that and you start working, you do an internship or whatever it may be, however it works, depending on what you do, and all of a sudden you're 30 years old and you're caught in the system. You've got the mortgage and the children or the whatever, the car payments, and you're caught in this wheel and this wheel and this wheel. And what I find is generally when people's either kids grow up and leave their home, or they get into a transition period where literally they start cracking up. The job is driving them insane, and this is happening more and more, or they find something about themselves. When this happens, I've got a chat message there, I don't even know what that does, never mind. When this happens, they look for an alternative. And that's where recruiting comes in. And one of the most successful people I work with, and there was two situations here. I'm going to tell a very specific story. I was in Hamilton, Ontario. Phones are going ringing off the hook. I used to do again, before the internet days, people would drive in sometimes 2 hours for an interview that they didn't even know what it was, because we didn't discuss it over the phone. We didn't talk about it. And I will tell you the relevance and the parallels here to what I've done in the last few weeks, and the parallels between what I used to do and what I'm doing now, because we're in a different age now. We're in an internet age. So these people came in for interviews. Literally, they'd be told nothing over the phone. We just qualified them by saying, in that business it was full-time. What I do now is very much part-time, not for me, but for people I work with. So it's a different market slightly. So, people would call and the phones would ring off the hook, and the people answered the phones would have a very specific way of answering the phones. The phones would always be answered, hello personnel, or human resources. There'd never be a company name. The ladies on the phone, or even when myself did it, would just be very, very brief. Oh, hi, can I just get your first name, please? Oh, hi, John, yeah. So listen, I've got to keep this brief. The phone lines are going nuts here. We've got, 200-300 calls a day coming through. We're looking for very specific things here. We need to be full-time, and you need to have neat handwriting and be coachable. And what's the job? As I say, I've got 200 lines going on right now. Are you looking for full-time? You are. Okay, grab a pen. Okay, we've got a pen and write this right now. Give him the address. What was the address? I should remember this. 654 Barton Street East. Still remember it. 654 Barton Street East. All right, I've got an 11 o'clock and I've got a 2 o'clock tomorrow. Can you tell me more about the job? Yeah, I'd love to. It'll be explained tomorrow. Come on down for an interview. Listen, dress yourself smart. Be early. They won't interview anyone that's late. Is 11 or 2 best for you? 2. Okay. Can you read that? Can you read that address back to me, John? Okay, got it. Listen, you come here, ask for Tony. I'll be here early and I'll have a chat with you then, and I'll get you in with an interview, one of the guys. Guarantee it. Okay, John, thanks for calling. Have a great day. Boom. And I would put the phone down, and that was it. And so this guy on the phone, all he knows is he's going to show up for a full-time job. Doesn't know what it is. He's just showing up for a full-time job. That's it. That's what he was looking for. So when he showed up, it was even more baffling, because my office back then was this huge old, what do you call these things, banquet hall. So it was literally, the banquet hall signs were still outside. So if you showed up, you'd even think you were going working in the restaurant industry or something. You'd show up, they'd come inside. Then when he came in, I just remember very specific things about it. We always, the office always looked good. Everyone was, there was 2 people that worked at the reception desk, but I won't call them receptionists. That's a bit undermining. They did a lot more than that. They essentially were recruiters. And what I would do is I wouldn't even be in sight. I'd just be sat in my office. They would just book people into a room. In the room, we'd have a movie on or something like that. Not a business one, just something lighthearted they could sit at if they got there early, or some magazines they could read. Just make them feel at home. There's always coffee there. We'd come in, they'd sit there, and bang on time. If it was 2 o'clock, I'd just walk out at 2 o'clock. No one would have a clue. There might be 50, 60, 100 people in that room. I've done rooms with 400 people, standing room only in some cities. And I would just explain very briefly who I am, first name only. I'm Tony. This is what I do. This is what the company does. This is what we do. This is the pay plan. Okay. This is the pay plan. This is how it all works. Now, the reason, and before I even start that, the reason I do that is for me to explain everything we do. It might take 20 minutes, half an hour. If I had to do it with every single person one-on-one, it's going to take too long. And literally, we've got that many openings going on, I can't even interview enough people. So I'll explain everything, and any questions, just leave until the end to one-on-one interview. It stops interruptions. So people sit there, do a good job in front of the room, and I would actually say to people at the end, listen, if this is not for you, thank you so much for coming, please feel free to leave. And people didn't leave. And I would always ask, generally Trish, to give me a hand with interviews. You know, if there's 200 people, and I'd do interviews in 5 minutes maximum. So this, I think it was the second week I was there. This guy comes in, Rob Flynn, remember his name, I wish I could reconnect with him, up in Hamilton, Ontario. This guy was an ex-semi-professional ice hockey player, and he looked like one. Rob was, I want to say, about 6'2" and 220. He was a big guy in his early 20s, and he had a bit of a chipped tooth, and good guy, but he had this really, really, like, focus. And I said, so I was, you know, have a seat, Rob, nice to meet you, da-da-da-da-da. So tell me, Rob, you know, I see your resume, and these resumes, I'll be honest with you, once you've seen the first 5,000 resumes, the rest all look exactly the same. They all look perfect. I don't even look at them anymore. I don't even care. So I have the resume, but also we have them fill out a quick questionnaire, which is a few key points and a few questions we would ask. Things that might throw people off. What did you have for breakfast today? People actually thought they were trick questions. They weren't. Okay? They were to ascertain where someone was at in terms of energy-wise or awareness-wise. So I start talking with Rob, and I said, so Rob, why do you think you'd be good at this? And his intensity, he just leaned forward and said, I can do this. I can do this. But here's the thing. If I do this, I want to work with the absolute best guy you've got, and I will duplicate what he does exactly and work harder. And I remember those days. This is over 20 years ago. Remember that exact statement. I will duplicate exactly what he does and work harder. And I looked at Rob and I saw that intensity, and you know, and he was a lot bigger than me as well, so I hired him. You know, I'm not an idiot. And come back on Monday. Here's your training schedule. Show up on Monday. The next guy that couldn't have been more different. The next guy, Dennis O'Brien, who I am still connected with, came in as best as I can describe. So Rob's in his early 20s. Dennis was in his 40s. Dennis came in and as close to dressing like Austin Powers as you can imagine. He had a red, I always remember this, a red velvet jacket on and a stripy shirt. And Dennis came in and literally was just gazing around the room. So, you know, when you go for an interview, generally, you know, if you're interviewing someone, you don't really expect them to say to you, oh, hey, man, how's it going? That was Dennis. So Dennis does this, hey, man, how you doing? Sits down, slouches back on the chair, really laid back. And I'm thinking, this is a wind-up. I'm thinking someone is having fun with me now, because there's no way on earth this guy fits the bill. So I get chatting with this guy, Dennis, and he's, you know, he's gazing around the room and looking around. He says, wow, man, love the vibe of this place, man. And right then I thought the guy was just stoned or something. So I get chatting with him. My mind is get the guy out as quickly as possible. But, you know, out of courtesy, he's took the drive down there. So I'm chatting with Dennis, and I said, so Dennis, why do you want to work here? He said, you know, I got a job, man. And I'm going, oh, this guy's just an idiot. I got a job. Oh, what do you do now, Dennis? I manage some condo buildings. I went, okay. I earn about $100,000 a year, and this is going back 20 years in Hamilton, Ontario. That was a lot of money back then for someone with a job. I earn about $100,000 a year. He said, I got a big mortgage. I got 2 children in private school. But I love the vibe here, and I hate my job. He said, all I deal with is people whining all day long. It could be the lock's broken, someone's parked the car somewhere, the window won't open, the elevator's jammed, someone's pissed in the stairwell, blah, blah. He said, I just hate it all day long, man. I need a change. And something resonated with Dennis, but I actually really felt for him. And when I talk about people at breaking point or transition, Rob was at breaking point. He was broke. Dennis was in transition. And he was a, you know, I got through the Austin Powers outfit and the somewhat Colorado gaze, we'll call it that. And I just really connected with Dennis, and he seemed like such a genuine guy. And I went, you know, I don't know what this is, Dennis. He said, listen, Tony, before you hire me, I will tell you one thing. I'm a very slow learner. So if it takes me a month to get this, I'm cool with that. Okay, listen, Dennis, never takes anyone a month. Never takes anyone a month. Doesn't. So I hired him. All I remember about the training class was these guys sat next to each other. Rob was cold, so the ice hockey player was through the whole training class, which may be why he didn't make it ice hockey, I don't know. So I keep up my end of the bargain. I put Rob with the best guy I've got, a guy called Don at the time. Rob watches him. Next day, goes out and breaks a company record. Then breaks it again the next day. Again the next day, and again the next day, and again. First week breaks a record. Next week destroys the company record. Third week dipped a little bit. The reason it dipped, first week he put groceries in his fridge and paid a few bills. Second week he cleared all his bills. Third week he didn't have a goal. He didn't understand it. So I gave him a goal. You know, he's into music. I said, go get a stereo. Well, yeah, sure. And it was like every week I was having to give Rob different goals. You know, go buy a new car, man. I can't afford a new car. Go buy a used car. I don't care. Just go find something. And at the time, you know, he was like early 20s and probably earning $4,000 a week. But Rob was very much for Rob. You know, he didn't like training people. He just liked to go out and go and earn his money. Now, Dennis, in this same 4 weeks, did exactly what he said he was going to do. Rob said, I'll duplicate it and work harder. And he did it. Dennis told me he was going to be a slow learner, and he was a slow learner. So the first week, Dennis went out every day, came in, good vibe, nice smile, relaxed, calm. Nothing for a week, which is unusual. At the time, we were giving away low rate, long distance, and giving away $30 with the course. So you'd think it's fairly easy. Second week, nothing. So now I'm asking his sort of team leader, what's the deal with this guy? I said, so what happens? I said, well, you know, at the end of the day, when we meet up, say, you know, how was it, Dennis? I go, oh, man, it was great. I met all these wonderful people. I had a nice coffee, yada, yada, yada. So how much business did you get? Well, I didn't get any business, but I had a wonderful time. I just met some great people. Okay. The third week, this same stuff's going on. And in the fourth week, Dennis came in to quit. And I don't know what it was. He said, you know, Tony, I love this. I love doing it. You know, just maybe it's not for me. And I remember what I said. I said, don't give in so easy. A day or two, 3 days tops. Here we are 4 weeks later, and I just blurted out, don't give in so easy. I said, I'll tell you what, Dennis, here's what we'll do. Why don't you go and watch your buddy for a few hours? Go work with Rob. You guys are friends. I know Rob likes working alone. I'll figure it out. I'll make it fit, which generally meant I'd give Rob some cash to have someone watch him for a while. Dennis went out, watched Rob, duplicated it, and beat Rob and everyone else in the office. Dennis went from 0 to 100 miles an hour in a second, which just didn't happen. Then, you know, from that, the parallel is this. I didn't prejudge either of them. Rob looked keen. Dennis relaxed. Rob was in his early 20s. Dennis was in his 40s. And, you know, there was just, I didn't prejudge. So when it comes to recruiting, you just don't know. I can try and find out everything I can about the person I'm speaking with, but there might be something they're not telling me. It could be anything. And it might be none of my business. So I don't know. So I don't prejudge. That's the first thing I can tell you about recruiting. Do not prejudge if you're in what I call mass recruiting. I'm not looking for niche markets here. I'm not looking for a guy who can design a widget on a 3D photocopier. I'm looking for people who are either at breaking point or looking for a change. Now, that looking for a change could be they're from a similar position, same career, but they're not happy where they are. So for a while there, You know, I was in the energy deregulation business for a while, and that business is split very specifically. Residential clients and commercial clients. So residential is people going out knocking on doors, door to door, registering people for different energy companies. Commercial is a little bit more complicated in terms of, with commercial marketplaces, generally a client will sign, in most states, I'm talking about the States, and it's probably the same across the world. I know there's people watching this are all from all over the world right now. Where it's deregulated, most places is residential, you can cancel these agreements anytime. So you can go to see someone that's just joined a company a month, 2 months, 3 months ago, and they can join with you and switch companies residentially. Commercially, it's very different. So commercially, you put people on 2-year agreements, 3-year agreements, 5-year agreements. For them to get out of it is a costly exercise. So my target market is people like that. People who've been out there, they were in the energy business when there was money in it. They might have been in another business. You know, I was reading something today about what a bunch of super successful people were doing when they're 25, and there's a whole chunk of them. I think the guy from Starbucks was one of them, and I think Mark Cuban might have been another one, that was selling photocopiers. And I remember those days of photocopier salesmen earning, you know, 300,000-400,000 a year. Now you don't want to do it today because it's the market is past. So when you're recruiting, you need to get, if you're doing mass recruiting for mass income, you need to get into a mass market, but find your niche in it. Get in it ahead of everybody else. Get in it ahead of everybody else. I've got other videos on here about, you know, how to stay ahead of the curve and things like that. That's not what this is about. So I look for mass markets, but I look for my niche. So, you know, without talking about business specifically, so what my target market is right now is twofold. Right now, there's a huge, we're in the US, there's another huge void in the healthcare, health insurance industry, whereby brokers are down on their income. So we have a target market there of group health insurance brokers across the board who are generally hurting. And, you know, I saw something else today. It's, you know, if someone was watching a recording today, this isn't some sort of election day in the US, and I saw some article about they're not releasing next year's prices till next year. And it's an absolute mess. And also the amount of people I find without any health insurance. So we're in, you know, I have a niche market situation now where we fill a gap. So it's a mass market, but we fill a gap. Mass market is whatever, 400 million people in a healthcare mess, for want of a better word, and we found a niche in that market. Then the other side of the business, what I'm looking for right now, is these people that have been in other businesses that can go business to business. So, you know, for me personally, because I'm not really, I'm in New York City right now, but I'm free to travel. What I'm looking to do is build a business across the states. So I could camp myself out in an office right here in New York and build a sales team of 100 people to work New York City easily. Okay, but I don't need an office these days. So this is the transition. I don't need an office. I don't need people coming in for interviews. Okay, these days I don't really need that stuff now. And none of us do. We're in an internet world now. Let's face it, we're in an internet world. I can interview someone if I have to do an interview over Skype or FaceTime or whatever it may be, anywhere in the world. So where do I get recruits from right now? Well, personally, I'll talk personally and I'll talk other avenues. In the past, I've used Monster and I've used Craigslist, but when I say my office has. So I'm not the master of that, okay? I'm not the master of that. However, what I do know is when you put an ad in something like that, I'm only using those two, they're not the only two, something like that, when they respond, you need to connect with those people. You need to actually pick up the phone and speak with them, or have them call you. There's got to be some way of doing it. I know Darren, who does a lot of this up in BC, Darren has a questionnaire to see if they qualify. So instead of, thanks for your resume, here's my link, which is going to do nothing at all, The qualifying questions is going to tell you, and if you work with me, you work with Darren anyway. If you don't, connect me after this call. Those qualifying questions are going to tell you the info you need, but it gets the communication going, and from there you can create the rapport. What I'm not doing is pitching people for jobs. It's the opposite. They're coming to me. In the last week, last 2 weeks, I think, loads and loads and loads of business come in for me personally, that I've done personally. It's all come in, all mine has come in inbound through Facebook. However, there's a very specific technique. Number one, and if you guys, I guess, are on my Facebook, you're on this call, I post a lot on Facebook, but if you look at my Facebook, you wouldn't have a clue what I do for a living. How do I know that? Because the most common inbox I get all the time is, WTF do you do for a living? Because anyone that watches my life, it looks like I don't actually do anything. Yeah, I'm on Facebook all the time. Why? It's a connecting tool for me. If I wasn't on Facebook all the time, I'm on the phone, or on both, or whatever it may be, or I'm training something like this. So I utilize it all the time. What I don't do is turn it into a billboard. What I do is pique people's curiosity. What does this guy do? So we mix up, and I'll get this out there later on. It's things like, so again, there's another video out there on my channel here, social media tips. So all the training I do and things like this, I don't charge for. I believe, if there's something I've got that can help, it's out there to help. It's not out there to make me money. Okay, so I tend to do these things to get them repeated and get about there, and hopefully they help. So my Facebook, if you look at it, I will. This not everyone will get. I can look at my Facebook page and know what it needs. I'll know if it needs something funny. I'll know if it needs something pertaining to what's going on. I'll know if it needs a selfie or a picture. I'll know if it needs a check-in. I'll just feel it. So it's not all one thing. Sometimes I look at someone on social media and it's all the same thing, or it's bitching and whining. Right, turns off, or it's a billboard. I just got this new blah 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 phone. You should get one too. And that you could switch the phone for skin cream, supplements, whatever. Whatever. It becomes a billboard. People switch off. So the art of social media is to create interest and connect. Now, there's something else you should know about social media use. 3%. 90% will watch, and those are the people in inboxes or that send you the message my phone. Now, generally this is your own. I'm not telling you what to do here. I'm just telling you what works for me and what works for Darren. My phone number is out there. Okay? My Skype thing is out there. Anyone can find it. Okay? Anyone can find it, and I answer my phone. And if I miss a call, I call them back. So, I'm not, to get the phone ringing, the phone number's got to be out there. But it's no good just throwing a phone number out there. There's got to be a story with it. There's got to be some content with it. But I don't put my phone number out there with, sometimes I run a bit close to the wire with some of my jokes. I don't put my phone number on those things. I put it on the relevant things. Okay? Like this link, I believe, had my phone number on it. Things like this. So it's important to get it out there. Something else you should know on social media, and again, this is your personal choice. If your social media is on secrecy or privacy mode, no one can see it. Everyone can see mine. I do have it set so people can't post on my wall. So there's different, if you're not aware of this, there's different things you can do where, if someone wants to post something or tag me or something, it won't show up until I check it. So the simple reason is there's people out there that will just spam garbage all over your wall. So on the social media side, that's what I do. Now, when I get that inbox, that message, what is it you do? I don't tell them. I engage with them and have a conversation. Hey, Tony, I've been watching you for a while. What is it you do for a living? Oh, hi, David. How are you? How's your day today? Oh, it's great. I just take it right away from that. I don't go, here's my link. Thanks. When people do that to me, if you've seen any pictures, you will see my email is always backed up at least 5,000. Just No, not interested in spamming stuff on me. So what I do is I connect with them. Doesn't matter what they say. Listen, I want to know more about your business. Oh, hi, David. How are you? What's going on in your life today? How's the weather? How was your weekend? Again, I've got training things on rapport as well. There's 50 questions I can ask people and get in a conversation before I even get to business. And before I get to business, I've generally found out what they do. I'll take a quick look at the world if I can't figure it out. Today there was a guy who was asking me about it just by chance. He's in the same industry. Might be watching this right now. I don't know. So we're having a conversation. You know, found out where he lives. Little things like that. How's business? But generally a conversation first, not inbox spam. Connect. This is the same whether it's like in life. Connect, create some rapport. Whether it's a face-to-face interview, whatever. You know, I just like to. I love dealing with people. I like to have fun. I like to laugh and joke with people before I even get to business. So then, the absolute techniques that I've used over the last 2 weeks to have a constant stream of people recruiting, okay, and again, I'm not naming businesses here, but a constant stream of people recruiting in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it took a little while for a bit of a transition there, and generally it's a 3-week ramp up when you're doing something new. So, what did I do? I started doing, what can I call these? Not conference calls per se. So myself and Darren Little up there in BC, we start doing calls between us. Now, the difference between a call and one of these and a hangout is a call you can listen to in the car. A call you don't have to log on to. You can just listen to it. So people can actually go on there anonymously and listen to what's going on. And I know there's a bunch of you that were on this panel a minute ago that were from that. So the first call I actually wasn't on. It was Darren and Eric. The first call, within 2 minutes, my phone went, my text went, and my messenger went within 2 minutes. 3 people within the first 2 minutes at the end of that call, every single one jumps into business. So did I talk them into the business? No, not at all. When people inquire at the end of the call, can you tell me a bit more? That was a really good call. And on the calls, we don't talk about business. We rarely talk about business. It's more, the last one we did was millionaire mindset or millionaire mentoring or whatever it was. So, you know, it varies, but it's a specific call. So someone can actually listen to that call anonymously. I'm going to tell you something else about how to get people on the call utilizing media. It realistically about 45 minutes before the call, even half an hour, even 15 minutes, but not 5 hours because it's gone. 5 hours is fine as a build-up, as an intro, but then the importance is to keep it going. And if it looks like spam, it tastes like spam, and people don't like it, okay? So I know there's people on this call right now, I'm not naming names, that do a great job of this. And then what they do from the call is then they'll get the recording of the call and post it again. Hey, I was just on this great call about XYZ. Not a company. I was just on this great call about a training program. It's free. Just listen to the call. So, you know, we end the calls with whoever invited you, get back to them. Not to me, to them. So, yeah, there's a degree of trust, but also I like to be transparent and deal with people like that. Not log on. These people annoy me, you know. Log on to my link, which means you're locked into them to get on a call, so I just don't go on it. So the difference is these calls get packed by people who have no idea who they are. But the calls themselves are, I believe, based on feedback, not on what I say, but on feedback, I believe the calls have so much added value in them that people listen and get something. Wow, that was different. Now, what do we do now? You get some feedback from the call. Okay, again, I'm not spamming. Okay, get some feedback from the call. I'm creating a conversation, I'm creating some rapport, same thing as before. That call was excellent. Yeah, it was a blast, wasn't it? Yeah, what's going on in your life? Turn it back around, create rapport, connect. Not, that call was great. Really? Have a listen to my link. Log on my site. connect, 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 create rapport, connect, 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 create rapport, 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 and at some point, when I'm chatting with someone, they'll actually ask me, so what is it you guys do? Can you tell me a bit more about it? Sure I can, but you know what? I'm not the best guy to do that. I'm actually not the specialist in that field, and I'm genuinely not. So here's what I do. It doesn't matter what you do for a business. If you've not got a website or something people can look at, you need one. So fortunately, I've got a website. That's everyone on this panel does. So I send my website to them straight away. I send it generally. Here's a little tip for you. If you've got an iPhone, and I'm sure there's something similar on Droids or whatever they call them things. I'm just not technically adept enough to have something like that. So on an iPhone, you have I don't know if you better see this. So you have a notes section. So on that notes section, I have, I don't know if that works, probably not. I have it saved into my notes section. That's not it, that's something else. I have it saved into my notes section, and from that, I can send an email directly to them. Boom, I do it there and then. Now, what do I do next? Nothing. However, there'll be another call in a few days. So all I do is my follow-up. Hey, da 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 da. I just chat with them. I don't actually ask, did you? Oh, by the way, when I send that out, you know what? The site, it's not that complicated. There's a little video on there that tells you how to work the site. So you click on the video, and the video does all my work for me. The video is like me stood in front of a classroom 20 years ago. I don't need to do that. I'm not the best at that, at doing these videos. So I let someone else do it, a third party. When I contact them a few days later, and generally it is either the night before we've got another call going on, or at some point that day, I just contact. I don't talk about the video or the site. I just contact and reconnect and recreate rapport. It's not about business, okay? So at that point, I'll get chatting with them, and just before I get off the phone, oh, you know what, by the way, we've got another one of those calls you can listen to tonight. Really? Yeah. You know what? I'll send you the link for it. And again, it's in my phone. I'll send you a link for it. It's get the time down, 9 o'clock. But there's no pressure. I said it'll be a different, but it's the same way. You can just listen to it anonymously, and that keyword there is anonymously. No pressure at all from this end. But here's what's happened, and here's the pattern. People listen to the first call, get some quality out of it, pique their interest. Doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It gets their interest. They feel the energy. They feel the level at which we're open on. They feel that we're having fun. They listen to the call. Those that are interested will either contact you straight away or watch what social media or in your life in general. You know, I saw an interesting one before by a friend of mine. He's an accountant actually, might be listening to this, in Windsor, Ontario. And he's been through the career path and works for one of the big accountancy companies, and he's on, you know, this big career path. And he said, you know, there's guys in Toronto, Canada, where I used to live years ago, that have questioned if your legitimacy or something like that. And he said, you know what, the guy lives in Manhattan and appears not to do any work. You figure it out. So that's not an ego thing, but that's a reality. It means people are watching. Those 90% that are watching and not saying are watching. So be mindful of what you put up there. Keep it away. You know, listen, I get as close to the wire as most people. You know, the people know my views, but I tend not to target certain subject matters. I'll leave it alone a little bit. But if something's topical or a little bit controversial, yeah, I will poke the fire a little bit. You know, it's like you've got to beat the ground to get the snakes moving. I'm not calling people snakes, but sometimes you just got to fire it up. So people are watching. So we go from listening to the first call, going onto your site with whether you've got a video on your site or just a website or whatever it is, okay, to next time there's a call on, in my particular industry, this is what I do. Next time there's a call on, and a lot of the calls I do with somebody else, just let them know there's a call on. And guess what happens? After the second call, boom. Just one after the other after the other. What have I done to make that happen? I've informed them when stuff's going on. I've put it out there publicly. I've not talked them into, make sure you log on to my link before you go on the call. Okay. Hey, what if you lose someone, Tony, and they go and work with somebody else? So what? Doesn't matter. There's 400 million people in the country. I don't care. It makes no difference. You know, maybe they'd rather work with somebody else. Maybe they like somebody else's views on something else in life. You know, here's one of the things. Believe it or not, about as many people hate me as like me. Okay, but I don't sit on the fence and stuff. And I know I've had people that have actually said, I love your business, but I don't agree with your ideologies on certain things. Fine. You know what? It's a great business. There's lots of people in it. Work with them. It's no, you know, I'm not offended. It doesn't bother me. Okay? And what I'm not trying to do is appeal to everyone and please everyone. Just be real out there. Just be yourself, because people can read through it. So, on a call, create rapport. Get chatting with them. When it comes up, can you give me more information? Is there anything you can send me? Even then, right away, I'm not doing it. I'm still keeping it talking. Literally, trying to get business information out of me is like pulling teeth. It's as though I don't want to give it to them. As opposed to, here, log on to my link. Doesn't work. Every spammer in the world is out doing that stuff. And you know, if you work with me, I guarantee it's happened to you. It happens to all of us. So from there, the next call, I just let people know when it is. I don't ask them to be on it. Oh, by the way, those guys are doing a call tonight. I think it's different subject matter. But also, after the calls, post the stuff on your wall with a recording of the call. And you will find, after you do this for a week or 2 weeks with no push from you, you're going to get no resistance back. What you're going to get is what you're reflecting out there, you're going to attract back in. So, you know, when I started this in my business, I utilized, and I still do utilize someone else's video. But then I'd utilize someone that knew it a little bit better than me and get them on calls. And then I learned how to do these hangouts. So these hangouts, and here's another piece of advice I've got for you guys. Hangouts, videos, I do walk around videos. I generally, I mean, whether it's YouTube or whether it's, I've got another page on Facebook. They're all labeled The Real Tony Cohen. I generally put a video on that every day, which is a walk around training video, which is literally me just walking around for 5 minutes, rambling into the phone about something. And, you know, some of them are a bit, some of them have got warnings on them, but some of them, you know, you might just get something out of it that helps. So that's where I'm at right now, and oh my word, I'm ahead of time here. And the transition from dealing with real people to dealing with, you know, an internet world. Get a Skype lined up. Get, if you're not on, I think FaceTime only works on Apple products, I'm not sure. Maybe there's one that works on Androids. I honestly don't know, I'm not a tech guy. But get yourself connected. So things like social media is not a selling or recruiting tool, it's a connecting tool. So once someone connects with you, you want to get them on a call. You know, I'll get them on a call if they're in North America. If they're overseas, I'll get them on a Skype. Okay, purely fiscally. I'm not sitting on the phone calling all around the world all day long and running up stupid phone bills. Okay, it's not necessary these days. Something else I would say, okay, and this is pertaining to anyone that works with me. We are rolling something out in, you know, a week or two, and what that means for you guys is it basically means you've got me in your corner. So between the people you work with, that's not necessarily me, but here's a pattern. Whatever it is, I'm only using Monster and Craigslist. They're just the ones I remember. I might be right. I just remember we used to use them in New York. I do know in certain cities, Craigslist is one that has certain connotations in some places and different ones in others. Okay, because it's used for a variety of things. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. So here's the situation. you've got me batting for you. So right now I'm here in New York City, and I'm looking to get out of here in a month, 2 months. I love this place, but after last winter, I don't need to be here. I can do everything online, so I'm just going to head south. So I might, if you were with me, you know what? Next week I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. Run a Craigslist campaign, Washington, D.C. Or I might just say, let's run one for New York City. So one of you guys put that ad in for Brooklyn, someone put it in for Staten Island, someone put it in for Newark, someone put it in for Weehawken, someone put it in for Yonkers, someone put it in for Harlem, someone put it in for Spanish Harlem. So you can run the same ad and change it very slightly, and it'll target a different market. So literally, if you put bums on seats, I think was the term, I will stand in front of them in a room and do my thing. Okay? Now, just to put this into context, done this before, years ago, selling water filters. We had 3 couples in our first meeting. 2 of them bought a water filter. The water filters were $1,500. You could have got them cheaper by importing them, definitely. And people knew this. It was no secret. Within a month or 2 months, we were doing $1 million a day at $1,500 a unit through the same little office, because word gets out there. So if I'm in New York City and you're recruiting someone through Craigslist and they've worked in, and I'm just going to use the energy industry, for example. They worked in the energy industry, and when it was booming, they might have been making whatever, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a week, and now they're struggling to make $1,000. So they're looking to get back to those figures again. And you get them in for just an interview with me, and it's a group thing. I'm not doing one-on-one interviews. It's a group thing. You get me 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people in a room, I'll do my thing. So the way to do that is connect with Darren on the Craigslist and the ad campaign. Don't just randomly spam people out there. Get them in there. Guess what? I'm not going to do one of these things. I'm going to do 2 or 3 per city. Because guess who that person that's not earning what they used to earn knows? Everyone else in the same industry that's done the same thing and is also down. So instead of one person off Craigslist, you can all of a sudden go like, oh, this one person came in, he was in, it doesn't matter what it is, photocopier sales, and he used to make $300,000 a year, and now he's making 70. And all of a sudden, what we have, or what you have, works. Guess who he's going to call? He's going to call his buddies. Or he might just build a team. He might just build a team and want to make his income from the team. So how did I pull 7 figures recruiting? I'll tell you how I didn't do it. I didn't make it off my own sales. Okay? So when I started, my first week I made $20. This was in long distance. On the pay cycle I got 1 client. It was $20. And then I started building an office. So instead of that $20 went to the person that dealt with the client. There was a thing back then about $7, what's called an override. So every deal, they got 20, I got 7. However, here's the challenge. I, or you, or any individual can only, you can look at the military for this, you can only look after so many people before you have to start training people to lead. So when that happens, that 7 goes down. Because I might give 4 of it to them. The lion's share for me always goes to the person doing the work. 4 of it to them. But all of a sudden, instead of me making 20 for my own clients that literally I didn't have time to do after 2 or 3 or 4 weeks because I was busy recruiting, and then after 2 weeks, it's second week in, I was training people in the field, so I was making my $7 plus my 20 on my own. By the 3rd week, I'd promoted people, so instead of me making 7, I'm making 3, but on 4 team leaders. And then as they got busier, what they did is they would get assistants and they would split that money with the assistants. They get $250 each, the assistant get $150, I'd get my 3, but out of 3 I'd pay all kinds of other stuff out of that as well. So at $3 per client, or maybe a touch more, I can't remember exactly what the exact figures, I may be off here. I went in 8 weeks, and I know I've used this figure before, and I'll use it again because it's just there. First week's pay, $20. That was off my own business. 8th week pay, $28,739. Okay? 8th week pay. That's not over 8 weeks. That's on the 8th week. $28,739. So that's almost $30,000. So if it had only stayed at that, that's $1.5 million a year. Sometimes you don't equate. 20,000 a week's $1 million a year, whichever way you break it down. So from $20 to $28,739 in 8 weeks. The weeks where I was earning that sort of money, I wasn't in front of customers. I was recruiting. Recruit, train, recruit, train, recruit, train, recruit, train. But not just training people to go out in the field. I would also train team leaders or the coaches. Here's what happened next. So next, we had a trip to, I can't remember where it was, the Bahamas or someplace. So about eight of my people at my office qualified from this trip. This is from all these offices in all over Canada. So 8 of my guys qualified, and I managed to talk myself into it. So I called Tim, who organized that, and said, listen, my guys, they're a bit like me. They get a bit out of control when they're partying. Someone needs to keep an eye on them. So I suggest I go down to Paradise Island in the Bahamas with everyone just to keep an eye on it. No, nothing else. Just for purely business reasons, I'm just there to keep an eye on it. Make sure it doesn't get out of control. And I'm thinking, literally holding that phone away, thinking he's going to scream at me, saying there's no chance. And he went, buddy, that's a great idea. I'll come with you. So then what I had to do is momentum is crucial on this. It's when you've got a well-oiled machine going and you stop it for a few days, it doesn't start back up at the same pace. Momentum has a half-life. If you take 2 weeks off, it takes you yet another 2 weeks to get back to where you were, minimum. So it's actually 4 weeks. So I wanted to keep this thing working. So the ladies in the office, Trish and Renee, had it down. They had the booking people in, the ads, the whole thing. I didn't even concern myself with it. That was fine. I needed someone to stand in front of that classroom and do what I did, and interview. So I asked a few people, who were doing well, and they all said, no, I'm going on the cruise. I'm going on this vacation. I went, yeah, but this is a chance to run your own business and train you, and then I'll open another office for you, and blah, 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 blah. Nope, I'm going to Bahamas, same as you. And, I asked this group, and one guy put his hands up, Fraser, went, I'll do it. And I actually said, I wasn't really thinking about you, which really is not a nice thing to say, but I actually wasn't really thinking about it. And then 2 days later, I'm in a jam. I got to keep this thing going. I said, Fraser, that was just a test, really. I said, of course I was thinking about you. But, Fraser's a guy, started, struggled, got the hang of it. What I found out, that the whole story since, it all makes sense to me. How he learned everything. He went to watch the best guy we had at the time, was this guy, Rob. Watched him, basically bought Rob lunch to go watch him all day. So Fraser did that. Then Fraser worked with the manager. Then the manager wasn't great, so Fraser just stepped in. Leadership is not given. Leadership is taken. Fraser just stepped in. And then he just said, listen, I'm running that whole team. The other guy's useless, never shows up. Well, okay, I didn't know. All right, Fraser, here's the thing. Sit in the training next week. Take notes. Sit in the interviews. Take notes. Your show. I'm going to be in the Bahamas. Came back. Business was great. He didn't get the same numbers as me, but I didn't expect him to. But it was still going, and the energy was still there, and the vibration was still there. So then, a few weeks later, or 2 months later, I'm off again on another company trip on a cruise for a week this time. Didn't even have to ask Fraser, you're up? You got a week? Yep, good. And then, after that, because we're doing such a good job in Hamilton, Ontario, Tim, who owned the company, said, listen, we've got issues in the Ottawa office. It's not performing. Can you go up there for me and see what's wrong? Went, yeah, absolutely. It wasn't financial. It wasn't anything. Can you help me? Yeah, absolutely. I help people that have helped me. Absolutely. Go up there. I see the office is very just flat, lacking motivation. I called Tim. I just said, listen, you got to get these people out of here. You got to get the guy that's running it out. You got to get his helper out and just get him out of here. I said, this is just, they're done. They're flat. And a big row started with me and this guy, and Tim just said, listen, whatever Tony says goes, so you guys are out of there. And then Tim said, right, you've got the office. I went, I don't want to live in Ottawa. What? I don't want to live here. Well, you got rid of them, you better figure it out. So I said, okay, I'll stay here for a few days, got the ball rolling, just organised a little bit, got a new receptionist who is also a recruiter. Drove back to Hamilton, it's about a 10-hour drive, and I said, Fraser, great news, I've got you an office. And he said, where? I'm in Ottawa. And he went, I'm not going. I went, no, that's not what I wanted you to say. He said, no, Ottawa is 15 hours drive from where I live, and I want to spend a little bit of time with my family at weekends, so next time another office comes up, let me know. I said, okay. Then all of a sudden I'm stuck with, I've got 2 offices to run here, and there's one where I don't want to be, and one where I'm at, which is the thing. So then I speak with this guy, Dennis, who was the slow learner. I said, Dennis, I've got, and he's got a wife and 2 children, they're in school and a mortgage, so this was like the last guy I thought. But he was just there. I said, Dennis, I've got an idea, because his wife was working with us by this time. I said, I've got this office in Ottawa, you can make yourself some good money. And, and do what I do, but up in Ottawa. And he went, oh yeah, that's good. I said, no, run it by your wife first. He said, no, she's for him, she'll be in. I said, Dennis, I know your wife, just run it by her first and at least ask her if it's okay. No, we're doing it. I said, please, ask your wife. No, we're doing it. I said, all right. When you tell your wife, tell her it was your idea, not mine. Okay? Because I know Jessica. Okay? So what they do, they rent the house out, they camp the family up there, I stick them in an apartment, so all of a sudden, I'm not getting my $7 per deal off that office. I cut a deal with Dennis, I was making maybe $1.50 per deal in that office, just overseeing it from afar. And then the next thing, I said, Fraser, I feel bad for you, Dennis, you were next up. He said, yeah, I know. I said, why don't we do this? Why don't we open in a town somewhere out of a hotel? It's your show altogether. I'll see you once a week. You know what you're doing. You got this. Go to St. Catharines, Ontario. It's about an hour and a half from here, and we'll stick you in a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, whatever. Not expensive, and we'll find one that's got a meeting room. You can run the whole show out of there. You in? You went, yeah, in, done. So again, I've got this satellite office there, so I'm making like $1 off everything that's going out of that, and Fraser's making the lion's share, doing a great job. And long story short, I'm still friends with both these people. And when we had a business that went public years ago, so basically I dropped out for years. And when I went on Facebook, Fraser found me and literally, like Michael Corleone, dragged me back into the energy business. And I've seen a guy that came in broke in his best year. I think he said he was in about $5 million a year. In his 30s, maybe in his 20s, in the energy business, because the timing was right. And he picks me up. He's got all the toys and all. He's into all that sort of stuff. And good guy. So these are people that I just recruited off an ad in a paper. You just never know. My original mentor, Pearson McDonald, told me, here's one thing, Tony. You just never know who it is. You just never know who that one person is that's got that magic thing. You just never know who that one person is. And if someone had looked at me in an interview years ago, they wouldn't have hired me. One of the guys, he was the president or vice president of the last business I worked with. Again, I think he earned $4.5 million last year. Literally showed up like he'd been in a dumpster for an interview. Okay? So it doesn't matter. You just never know. I'm not prejudging people. I'm just connecting, creating rapport, and here's the golden rule in anything in business. When people like you, they'll find a reason to do business with you. If you're a recruiter, you better make sure people like you, because then they'll want to work with you. And, not just on a business level, on every level. Okay? And this stems back to recruiting. To rapport. If they like you, they'll do business with you. So take a serious interest in them. Now, one thing I will say is if they don't like you, they'll never work with you. There's people that don't like me, work with me, and they won't work with me. That's fine. It's a reality. So what I would say for you guys right now If you're watching this and someone's invited you, get back to the person that's invited you to watch this. If you're watching it on a random video somewhere, The Real Tony Cohen, New York City, what I would say is if you work with me now already, and when I say work with me, work with the business I work with, we are doing a call in 2 hours, approximately. Darren and I are doing a call in 2 hours. If you're on a recording, ignore this. I'll try and find you the call. But we're doing one in 2 hours. My suggestion right now is create a good story, get the numbers and the codes to that call, run the Facebook thing, and get it out there. Remember what I said 45 minutes before? You can put it on now and run another one 45 minutes or 15 minutes before. If you run one now, you're going to need to run a different story with the same numbers on it. So you can basically start your recruiting campaign right now, right this second, as soon as you get off this call. So from New York City, guys, Real Tony Cohen, thank you so much for watching, checking out. I am out of here because I've got to fuel up and do the next one. Have a wonderful one, guys. Thank you.